We're speaking to Justice Michael D. Wilson of the Supreme Court of Hawaii, who's a guest here in India as part of the ABA conference. So thank you very much for speaking to India today.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
so you flagged the issue of environmental concerns and environmental jurisprudence, particularly in light of the very serious human rights concerns that the entire world is currently facing. How exactly can legal cooperation and coordination between countries work on this aspect, sir?
Hawaii is a place that has great human rights challenges because, for one thing, of the threat of climate change and sea level rise that will be a problem for our beaches and problem for our water system. India has a court system and leadership in the judiciary that is among the strongest in the world. And because India and Hawaii share this unfortunate condition of being on the front line of the climate emergency, it has been so helpful to us to have the leadership of the Green Tribunal of India, as well as Chief Justice Chandrachud, who's a leader in the world on human rights, including environmental rights.
So, just for a perspective, sir, since your state in particular, as an island state, and several other parts of the world are facing a very serious climate change environmental concern. As you said, there's been a lot of cooperation between the Green Bench and the Supreme Court of India and the Court of Hawaii. But from a legal perspective, how do you see leadership in the legal fields sort of driving a change, or driving a more nuanced perspective as far as human rights are concerned, especially since we're seeing in a lot of spaces that environmental concerns are facing a grave backlash from development, corporates, etc. And we've seen that as an example in your country.
I really appreciate that question because the hope for the future of the planet, as well as future generations, is a hope that depends on young lawyers bringing brave lawsuits so that brave judges are able to make decisions to protect the human rights of, and this is a very important intergenerational injustice. It's the greatest intergenerational injustice in the history of the human race, what is taking place, because future generations are going to experience the problem of climate change more than generations such as mine, more than the generations generally that involve judges who are older than 40 years old. So the point is, the future depends on young lawyers and the community of future generations joining together to add political import to the decisions that are being made by courts around the world that you have rights. But those rights to be enforced require political participation, particularly from those that are involved in the legal system.
So if I may just ask this question, and it may be a slightly impertinent question, particularly in your country, in the US, we've seen, as I said, backlash from politics, backlash from the corporates, when it comes not only to environmental jurisprudence, but also with respect to human rights, with respect to gender rights. How do you, since you are a sitting judge, you are a leader in your court, how do you see the role of the courts and international cooperation in dealing with these issues?
I think it's a consensus among judges that handle cases around the world that the most important issue facing humanity is climate change. So judges have to be able to help each other, and we do need judges that are women. We need judges that come from a younger generation, because a fascinating thing about the future of the human race is this is a difficult issue for the executive branches of government and the legislative branches of government, so it's falling to the courts. The courts are in a position now to have to make decisions about whether the rights of citizens are going to be recognized and enforced.
May I, if I'm not sure if it would be appropriate for me to ask you to comment on this, but with respect to your country, we've seen jurisprudence with regard to oil pipelines. We've seen jurisprudence with regard to environmental clearances. We've seen national parks, etc. We've seen in your own state the water issue being a very important one. Are you seeing any sort of work that is being done by the courts that is then being overturned by policy decisions? Is that why then these issues are not getting resolved but are getting worse across the world?
I think that the question about whether court decisions that recognize human rights, particularly with respect to climate change, are being reversed by governmental systems is a good one. But frankly, I don't think that that's happening that much, because the leaders of countries are seeing this as an issue of political survival. The more that young people, the more the average citizen realizes their future depends on the courts making these decisions, I think the more they're supporting the court decisions. And then, rather than the decisions turning into a reversal through policy, many of the decisions are starting to be the beginning of new laws that will protect young people, protect future generations, and require protection of the environment by the reduction of carbon emissions.
Thank you very much, sir, for speaking to India Today and for giving us this perspective.
Pleasure.